Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling Albert Camus.
Yeah, big topic.
Definitely. You asked for a way to grasp his core ideas quickly but thoroughly, right? So we've pulled together a bunch of stuff.
A really interesting mix, actually. Excerpts from essays like The Myth of Sisyphus, The Rebel, bits from his novels.
The Stranger, The Plague, of course.
Right, and even, plays, letters. It gives a pretty full picture.
So our mission for you listening is to basically pull out the most salient and maybe surprising bits of his philosophy.
Like a shortcut to being well-informed about Camus without, getting totally bogged down.
Exactly. We want those aha moments, those insights that really click.
Okay, so where do we start? Probably has to be the absurd, right? That's kind of central.
Absolutely. The absurd.
And it's key to get what he meant. It's not just like general confusion or things being weird.
No, it's more specific than that.
For Camus, it's this fundamental clash, this mismatch.
Between what we want and what we get.
Pretty much. Our deep human desire for meaning, for order, for purpose, bumping right up against the universe's total indifference.
It's silence.
Yeah, it's cold silence. It's like a core incompatibility in our existence.
Right, and you feel it, don't you? That searching for a big answer and hitting a wall, that feeling of being, I don't know, adrift.
A stranger in a world that doesn't light the way. Cal really felt that disconnect.
Which leads him to that really stark opening in the Myth of Sisyphus.
Oh, yeah. You can't ignore that one.
There is only one truly serious philosophical problem, and that is suicide. I mean, that gets your attention.
It really does. And, the key is why he starts there.
Why that problem?
Because for Camus, the question of whether life is even worth living given this meaninglessness is the absolute first thing you have to ask.
Before anything else.
Before all the theories about reality or whatever, he cuts right to the chase. What does it mean to be human if the universe doesn't care?
And calling it the only serious problem that puts immense weight on just experiencing the absurd.
Exactly. It forces you, right from the start, to confront the most basic question. Stay or go.
But importantly, he doesn't land on suicide as the answer. Not at all.
No, he calls it a cowardly evasion. Like you're dodging the real challenge.
Right. You're not facing the absurd. You're just checking out.
And he's just as critical of what he calls philosophical suicide.
Which is like leaps of faith, religion.
Yeah. Or any kind of transcendent belief system that tries to provide ready-made meaning. He saw those as basically shutting down your reason.
Like pretending the problem doesn't exist.
Exactly. It's a fraudulent fix, he thought. You're just papering over the crack instead of looking into it. He was all about intellectual honesty.
No comforting illusions just because the truth is uncomfortable.
Right. Face the void, don't pretend it's a garden.
Okay, so if physical suicide is out and philosophical suicide is out, what's left?
Well, that's where it gets interesting. He lands on acceptance. Even kind of embracing the absurd.
That famous line, right? Life will be lived all the better if it has no meaning.
Yeah. Sounds completely backward at first, doesn't it?
It really does. How can no meaning make life better?
Think about the freedom in it, though. If there's no big cosmic plan we have to follow.
Then we're free to make our own plan. Or just live.
Exactly. Free to create our own values, find joy right here, right now in this life, without worrying if it fits some grand design. Does that resonate with you at all?
I mean, the idea of taking back control, putting the responsibility on us, yeah, that's compelling.
And it puts the onus on us to define what matters.
Which brings us to Sisyphus. That image is just so powerful.
The ultimate symbol of the absurd condition.
Condemned forever to push a rock up a hill, knowing it's just going to roll back down every single time. Pointless.
Utterly pointless. He knows it. That's key. He's fully aware of the futility.
Yet, Camus says,
one must imagine Sisyphus happy.
Happy. Pushing a rock forever. How?
Because his rebellion, his meaning, isn't in succeeding. It can't be. It's in the act of pushing.
The struggle itself.
In the conscious defiance. In facing that meaningless task moment by moment and choosing to keep going. That conscious awareness, that struggle against the void, that's where the fulfillment, even a kind of dark joy, comes from.
So the awareness of the absurd isn't the end point, it's the starting point for revolt.
Exactly. Revolt, or rebellion, flows right out of recognizing the absurd. It's the Sisyphus spirit applied to life itself.
It's that moment you draw a line.
Yeah, that this far and no further feeling. Like the slave who finally says no to the master. It's a basic defiance against being crushed by meaninglessness or injustice.
But he says it's not just selfish, right? It's not just about me.
No, and that's a crucial insight. It starts personal, but it immediately implies something shared. When you rebel against something you feel is wrong, you're doing it based on some value you feel applies to everyone, not just you.
Like dignity or freedom.
Exactly.
Huh.
As he put it, there is a common good more important than my own destiny. So the act of rebellion actually points towards a shared human nature.
Ah, okay. So he asks, why rebel if there is nothing permanent in oneself worth preserving?
Right. If there's nothing fundamentally valuable about being human, then why bother resisting oppression or meaninglessness? Rebellion itself suggests that we do believe there's something core to us worth fighting for.
And that naturally leads to solidarity, caring about others.
Precisely. If you recognize that value in yourself, you have to recognize it in others. That's why true rebellion, for Camus, has limits. It can't betray itself by becoming tyrannical or cruel.
It has to respect the very dignity it's fighting for. Kind of Kantian, almost.
Yeah, there are echoes. Treat people as ends, not means.
But he was also pretty wary of big revolutions, historically speaking.
Oh, very much so. He looked at history and saw this troubling pattern. Revolutions start with noble aims.
Freedom, equality.
Right. But so often, they end up just concentrating power, creating new forms of oppression, sometimes even worse, the French Revolution, the Russian Revolution. He saw the danger of excess, even in a just cause.
The ends don't justify the means if the means destroy the original values.
That's the core warning. Be careful that your rebellion doesn't become the thing you are rebelling against.
Let's talk about the outsider theme. Mersault in The Stranger is the classic example, isn't he?
Absolutely. He's fascinating because he's so detached. He just observes everything, including his own life, his mother's death, the murder.
Without the expected emotions, without playing the social games.
Exactly. And you have to think Camus's own life fit into that perspective, Rand.
How so?
Well, think about it. He was a Pied Noir, a European in French Algeria, kind of stuck between cultures, then an Algerian in France, a non-believer, an ex-communist, part of the resistance. He was always sort of on the edge of different groups.
Never fully fitting in anywhere. Always looking from the outside, maybe.
It seems likely. And maybe, just maybe, that constant feeling of being an outsider is what made him value things like friendship and community so highly.
Because he knew what it felt like to lack them.
Perhaps. That longing for connection could be stronger when you feel peripheral. And, connecting that back, that ability to see things from different angles, the outsider view, it can offer real insights others might miss, like seeing technical problems from a fresh perspective.
Okay, shifting slightly. Guilt and innocence. That's another complex area in Camus. Again, back to Mersault.
Right. He kills someone, yes. But is he condemned for the act itself or for, for being weird?
For not crying at his mother's funeral. For not showing remorse in the expected way.
Exactly. Society judges his lack of conformity, his emotional honesty, or what looks like detachment, more harshly than the murder.
Which really makes you question what guilt is. Is it breaking the law or breaking social codes?
It exposes the hypocrisy, doesn't it? And in The Plague, he suggests a lot of evil isn't intentional malice, but just ignorance. People doing harm without really understanding.
Which means you need clear-sightedness, lucidity as he called it, for real goodness.
Maximum lucidity. You need to see clearly to act well.
And then you get Clemens in The Fall. The judge penitent, he takes it way further.
Oh. Clemens is unsettling. He basically pulls everyone into the dock with him. Universal guilt.
We're all hypocrites, all complicit in some way.
Pretty much. That line, to cease being a dubious case, one has to cease to be, that's all. Oof.
Chilling. It just shatters any simple ideas of good guys and bad guys.
Definitely pushes you to look deeper at motivations, at ourselves. Hopefully an aha moment there.
But it wasn't all doom and gloom with Camus. There's this other side, this real love for beauty, for nature, especially in his early stuff.
Absolutely. You read Nuptials or Betwixt in Between, and it's just bursting with sensory detail. This almost pagan joy in the sun, the sea, the physical world.
A hedonistic celebration, some called it.
Yeah, and for him, this wasn't just fluff. Beauty was essential, a fundamental human need.
She said, man cannot live without beauty, and that our era tries to ignore it.
Exactly. It's a striking contrast to the absurd, maybe, but it's part of his whole picture of life.
Even in the dark times, beauty persists.
It's the invincible summer he talks about finding within himself, even in the depths of winter. That resilience. He contrasts us ignoring beauty with the Greeks who'd literally take up arms for it.
So life isn't just miserable, it's also overwhelming in its magnificence.
Right. That's part of the tragedy, too, that life is so amazing and we often miss it or can't handle it. We need beauty, love, even danger, he thought.
So, okay, you recognize the absurd, you appreciate beauty, but then what? It can't just be passive observation.
No, absolutely not. For Camus, understanding the absurd is just step one. The real question is, how do you act now? What are the consequences for how you live?
And a big part of that is reducing suffering.
A huge part. He was very clear-eyed about it. Maybe we can't fix everything. Maybe we can't stop the world from being a place where terrible things happen.
That line about tortured children.
Perhaps we cannot prevent this world from being a world in which children are tortured, but we can reduce the number of tortured children. That sums up his pragmatic compassion, I think. Do what you can.
Make a tangible difference, however small.
Yes. And he saw art playing a role here, too.
How so? What's the artist's job?
For Camus, art's purpose is to increase freedom and responsibility, both in individuals and in the world.
Art as a kind of revolt.
A revolt against silence, yeah. Giving voice to human experience in all its complexity. And he also thought a life needs shaping, like art. Living takes time, he said. It requires thought.
And focus on the present.
Definitely. The true generosity toward the future lies in giving all to the present. And similarly, it is better to wager on this life than on the next. Put your energy here, now.
Which ties back beautifully to accepting the absurd, finding value in the moment. And for our listener, it underlines that gaining knowledge isn't just collecting facts.
Right. It's about informing your actions, how you engage with the world. Knowledge should lead to doing.
Another strong conviction he held was against the death penalty.
Lifelong opposition. Very deeply felt. Apparently, it was heavily influenced by seeing his own father's reaction, his distress after witnessing an execution.
He saw it as the worst kind of murder.
The most premeditated, he called it. Because it's the state. Cold and calculated, setting a date, holding someone powerless. He felt nothing a criminal does could match that level of premeditation.
And he argued it wasn't justice, just vengeance.
Yeah, a punishment that penalizes without preventing. If it doesn't deter, it's just revenge, hidden under legal language. He wanted to expose that.
He hoped it would eventually be abolished everywhere.
He did.
Okay, lastly, we should probably clarify his relationship with existentialism. He gets lumped in, but he pushed back on that label, didn't he?
Hard. He consistently said, no, I am not an existentialist.
What was the main difference for him?
Well, for one thing, he wasn't as interested in the really abstract metaphysical stuff, ontology, being that preoccupied Heidegger or Sartre. His focus was much more on, ethics, politics, the lived experience.
More concrete.
Yeah, more grounded. And crucially, he disagreed with that core existentialist idea that existence precedes essence.
The idea that we're born blank slates and create ourselves entirely.
Right. Camus, even while rejecting God, or preordained meaning, still held on to a belief in a common human nature, some shared core of dignity and value that we all have. He felt existentialism sometimes lost sight of that in its focus on radical individual freedom.
Interesting distinction. Okay, so bringing it all together for our listener who wanted that quick but thorough understanding, what's the big takeaway from Camus?
I think ultimately it's that he gives us this incredibly useful framework for how to live meaningfully in a world that doesn't give us meaning.
It's about facing the absurd head on.
Yes, recognizing it but not despairing. Then finding value in rebellion, a rebellion with limits, rooted in solidarity, valuing beauty, and crucially acting in the world with compassion, trying to reduce suffering.
It's a philosophy of courage, really, living authentically even when it's difficult.
Exactly. Living fully in this world.
Okay, and maybe a final thought to leave everyone with. Camus once wrote, "The welfare of the people, in particular, has always been the alibi of tyrants."
That's a potent one.
Makes you think, doesn't it? How do we judge claims made in the name of the people's welfare today? What justifications for power should we be wary of? Something to chew on.
Definitely. And hopefully this dive has sparked enough interest for people to go explore his actual writings. The Stranger, Sisyphus, The Plague, The Rebel. There's so much richness there.
For sure. This is just scratching the surface. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.
Guys, see you in another podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel